What up?
What's going on, man? You make it through that hurricane okay or what?
Yeah,
Tropical
yeah, yeah.
storm
We
or
had a little bit of
whatever
rain,
it was
a
when it
little bit
hit.
of wind.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, well, I would say fortunately and unfortunately, it was one of those situations where like they hyped it up like it was gonna be, the end of the world. And I know where we were. I can only speak for where we were, but where we were, I mean, we had a little bit of rain like on the day it was supposed to hit, and then that was pretty much it. I think we had one little like the power kind of like, and then came back on. But
Yeah.
God is good. We were able to not have too much damage. I know that there were other places that may have been hit a little bit harder. And oddly enough, so interesting. I went down to Tampa like the next day, like right after it was supposed to hit. I actually went down to Tampa like that
Hmm.
next day, and there was like no damage that I saw, no major damage that I saw, and they got hit supposedly directly almost. So it went well.
Well, that's good, man. Glad everything worked out for you.
Everything good with you down there, out there? The usual,
Yeah. Business as usual, man. Nothing's going
right?
on out here.
Nothing too
There's too much
wild,
money, too much money getting laundered through this country for them to really make any big statements right now.
right? I understand. Well, that's just the way of the world. That's how it goes. You know what I mean? That's what we do.
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
how America does it, at least.
Yeah,
We just use
exactly.
all these other foreign countries to funnel money. But
Exactly.
let's jump into
Yeah, man.
it, man. So I'm sure you sent me a bunch of reels. I checked them out, kind of went through them. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that's happened. We haven't really talked in what, like 2 or 3 weeks, huh?
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's been some weeks
I
for
was,
sure.
yeah, I was kind of telling everybody before. I was like, we're going to try to hit on the government today. We're going to try to hit on some COVID stuff, some
Yeah.
lockdowns, some interesting things about one of the Democratic candidates, Robert F. Kennedy.
Hmm.
Is it Robert F? Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Um, he's been pretty anti-vaccine for a while, but he's not anti all vaccines. He just kind of has a lot of questions that aren't being answered. He was actually in charge of a panel under Trump to investigate a lot of the vaccine data from previous
Right,
vaccines as well as into COVID-19, and they kind of shut him down. And he's
right.
actually being blacklisted from the Democratic um, nomination right now, is what he's saying.
Right.
I just was watching one of his shows. I'm not going to agree with everything that he says. He's kind of a communist at heart from everything that I've seen. But anybody who will get in there and bring everybody down, you suffer a little bit for a major gain.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty cool to hear what he has to say. So I'd at least like to see him on the debate stage just to see what he's going to say. Um, what they're going to put out there. But other than that, I mean, we've got the fires in Maui. I mean, hell, half the world's on fire right now.
Right. Which, man, like, I would say it like this right now. There's so much information coming out about all of those things. There's so much information coming out about, with the vaccines and lockdowns. You saw that video I sent you where Pfizer apparently bought the company. Pfizer bought the company that's fighting vaccine related injuries. So, or COVID related injuries. So, like, it's interesting that the company that is fighting the injuries and the side effects from the vaccines and from the COVID pandemic and all that kind of stuff, the Pfizer, the one providing the vaccine, then turned around and bought the company that is fighting the injuries that are coming from it. And so it's very similar to like the tobacco companies that purchase the vapes. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like, they purchase the e-cigarette companies. So literally their competition. You're the one, what they say, what was that analogy you gave? It's like the fox watching the hen house. You know what I mean? It's like the one providing the thing causing the injuries now owns
yeah,
the solution to the injuries. It's very interesting how that works.
yeah. Those who have the cure often have often caused the disease or something like that.
Yeah,
There was a good one I saw during the pandemic and everything like that.
right,
So
right.
yeah, it's just like Pfizer. You have companies like BlackRock, right? Have you gone down the BlackRock hole yet?
Yeah,
The
yeah. It's
the black
wild.
hole.
Yeah, it's a black
So
hole. That's exactly what it
so
is.
so they were just awarded a $500 billion contract to begin rebuilding Ukraine once all the fighting stops. So
Yeah,
it's just corporation after corporation after corporation, man.
yeah.
Um,
What do
it's a little disconcerting.
Yeah, would say this. I think so. We'll pick one thing at a time, man. And I would say I think the most immediate thing that I wanna kind of hit on is this Maui fire situation and the world fires situation. I find it very interesting. All the information that. But so first of all, you see The Rock and Oprah. They've been taking a lot of flack lately because they went out there and asked for donations from Maui. Um,
Yeah,
and obviously people are kind of like, oh, really? You're asking us for donation from Maui? Most of the country is struggling right now because of inflation and all this other stuff. And you sitting on $1 billion, and I think their joint net worth is like 2, 3, 4 billion dollars, something crazy like that. Like if they
yeah,
wanted to, they could take a chump change and rebuild the whole island if they wanted to. Um,
no, 100%.
you know, and I think that was they said they put up like 10 million of their own money. It's like, well, 10 million is like a buck, what I mean, to them. And I think it is
They
kind of
should have
disingenuous.
write it off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like it is kind of crazy. So they've caught a lot of flack because of that. But I think what's more concerning is all of the information coming out that is pointing to the fact that this Maui fire could potentially not be an accident, right? Not just be a wildfire. You know,
Yes. So I actually have a friend here who used to live in like he has family there, and I actually have another friend. She has a lot of family there, and like they got a little upset when because they call them conspiracies. I don't call them conspiracies anymore. I just call them hypotheses
right?
because the way information flows nowadays, the things that come out. Now I've heard some wild stories.
Yeah,
And seen some wild articles about Maui and stuff like that. But there's just a lot of things that don't add up. And once you start watching, and here's the thing, like there's so little news coverage about what's actually going on, which is crazy
right,
because it's probably the worst
right.
natural disaster that we've
I mean,
had.
you're talking about
Um,
800 people are still missing, like 1,000 children, or it was something crazy. Like the numbers obviously are always up and down, but I mean, yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
but to be reporting numbers like that, but not providing any context for them, because like with the kids, I had to dig a little deeper into that because the school system, the Department of Education was saying that basically they let the kids out of school early that
Right,
day for
right,
because of the hurricane, because of hurricane force winds, but they just sent them home. They didn't notify the
right,
parents or anything like that. So
right,
the Department of Education in Hawaii is saying that they're missing 2,000 children. That's just saying they don't have tabs on them because they sent them home, and now it's a national disaster. So obviously it's out of the school's hands anyway.
right,
So I
right, right,
wouldn't consider them a good source of information.
right,
But yeah, but there's some, I'm not even sure exactly how many people are dead, but I know there's a significant amount of people, and there is still a significant amount of people missing
right,
altogether.
right,
And it's an island, so they've got to be in the fire. But when you see the footage of the fire, you might not find much. Like you might find bones. I
right,
have to ask my friend who's better with dead bodies than I
right,
am, but I don't know what like in a crematorium, like at what
right,
heat
right,
you'd have to burn bones. But
right.
yeah, there's just a lot of stuff coming out of there
Yeah,
right now, and it doesn't make
yeah,
sense turning off the water or
right,
not turning the water on. Period. Um,
right.
I can't confirm that there was reports that they were blocking some of the roads of escape.
Right.
Where
Yeah.
people were, some of the locals were saying they had to like run out into the ocean and to try to
Right.
escape, run down onto the beach. And then everything in the aftermath, they weren't letting people in
Right. You
to go rescue
and
people,
you
to go
heard that
help
they're
people, to bring
arresting.
them supplies. Go
My
ahead.
bad. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you know that they're arresting people for even going down to their properties.
Yeah,
They're supposedly arresting people for going down there to see their property and see the damage and all that kind of stuff. And then I had recently saw that I guess insurance companies for some reason like aren't covering like some of the damages and things like that. And it just makes you it raises a lot of questions. And folks be like, yeah, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist and all that kind of stuff. But it's not so much about being a conspiracy theorist; it's about putting together information. And if it doesn't add, if the math ain't mathing, that's not conspiracy. That's just the math ain't mathing.
yeah.
If things are not coming together and adding up as they should, then it's something to look at. It's something to pay attention to. And like I saw the video of my man talking about like why aren't people being held accountable? Because here's another one. Uh, the people whose houses did survive, which is very few, from my understanding, they're getting eviction notices.
Yes.
You know,
That was real information that everybody in that area, even if their house didn't burn down, they're getting evicted. So that it's not a conspiracy that these corporations want that land, or now whether
Right.
it's like Oprah herself or just a conglomerate of what is it, BlackRock, is it Schwab, is it whoever owns all that land, or wants to own it, like they're coming in. And the disaster response was actually really, really slow, because I mean, if anything, we've learned from being in the Southeast, like when a hurricane's coming, they start mobilizing everything.
Right.
And so, like I saw videos of my friends who were firefighters and paramedics in New Orleans. They were sending stuff to Florida to help out, before it even hit landfall. So if they
Right.
knew that this thing could potentially hit, Hawaii, why didn't they start building up, on the coast of California or in some of the major cities, that they could fly out there and get out there
Right.
faster? It just seems like the response is really slow. However, I don't actually know what's on the ground, because no one's talking
Right.
about what's actually on the ground. So I
Right.
don't want to spread misinformation and say there's nothing there.
Right.
I know there's something there, but like I said, like, why aren't we reporting on it? Like, why aren't we reporting on this?
Right. Well, think about it. I mean, you figure if I can't bring too much attention to it, because if I bring too much attention to it, then I'm gonna bring attention to the things I don't want you to be attentive to. You see what I'm saying? If I bring
Yeah.
too much attention to the reporting, if I report too much about a situation, then what's gonna happen is that now I'm gonna expose myself in many aspects, because now you're gonna look a little, because people aren't just gonna look at the surface level. People are gonna look a little deeper. So if I report too much, we're gonna have a problem, because now too many people are gonna know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it coincidentally, I think it was in January, I saw that they had just had a smart city summit in Maui, from my understanding, like in January. And so now you're in this situation where it's like, okay, I don't want to say that there's more to this story than just a natural disaster, but I'm looking at this situation where you have a mysterious fire that starts coincidentally in the land. You cut off the water, you don't turn off the electrical grid, you don't respond. The FEMA supplies that are necessary, all of a sudden they get what's, I guess, stuck at the airport or something. I saw like somebody was talking about how all the FEMA supplies and things are like just over here, they're not coming to the people. Then you have this land, all of a sudden the governor, I think it was the governor, came out and immediately put these laws into place talking about purchasing your land. And it just, there are so many things about the situation that just don't add up. It doesn't make sense. And I'm not trying to, and I don't want to speculate, but especially when you have people who are on the ground posting, because the internet is a great equalizer. So if you're posting online, I'm here. I live in Lahaina, you know what I'm saying? I'm showing you this is what's really
Mm-hmm.
going on. It reminds me of like Al Jazeera. You remember them, you know what I'm saying? They had cats
Oh,
with
yeah.
little, you know what I mean? They had doggone video cameras, just like, hey, guess what? This was happening. You got bodies and everything all over the place. And so, it's one of the situations where if I'm here, things don't make sense. Things don't add up. And here's the thing. When you see things that don't add up in a situation, especially when it comes to the government, the question becomes, as the people, what can we really do about it? Because I think that's where people run into this issue of like hopelessness, because they feel like I can't do anything about this in the first place. And the reason I bring that up is, so the other day I posted something on my story. Not my story. I posted a thing that basically said, you know, you can do nothing and nothing will happen. Um, and right, nothing will happen, nothing will change, nothing will, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, you'll have nothing and you'll be able to do nothing about it. And somebody had commented, was saying, yeah, that's true and all that, but everybody's always talking about the problem, but what can we do, to combat that? What can we do? What are the steps forward? And I think that's,
So what I was thinking about the other day is, like, I remember when Afghanistan was falling, right? And you had celebrities like Tim Kennedy got in a private plane, flew out there, and started trying to evacuate,
yeah,
Afghans that he had worked with, and
right,
we had worked with in the U.S. government.
right,
Why aren't we doing that for our own country? Why,
right,
like, why aren't people just being like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go down there? Why aren't these rich people? Everyone wants to talk about, oh, we need to tax the rich, we need to tax the rich. I'm going to tell you what, if the rich would just step up and do things, nobody would talk about taxing them anymore.
right,
Oprah Winfrey and The Rock didn't need to get on there and ask for anybody for donations. They each could have donated a fraction of a percent of their
yeah,
wealth, and nothing else would have needed to go down there. And they could have done it overnight and been done with it already.
yeah. That place could have
It
been
just,
rebuilt in 6 months, 8 months. Yeah, no, I
yeah,
I
you know,
agree with you.
I think people are really getting sick and tired. And just like you said, like we're in a recession right now. Nobody has any money. Everyone's trying to make ends meet. They're trying to get by. For the majority of people, not everybody is lucky enough to have a job that's paying decent and
Right.
everything right now. People still haven't recovered from being out of work for 2 years under the COVID lockdowns. So
Right.
now you've got several celebrities saying, "Hey, we need your money. What you need $50 from me? That's about the best that I can do."
Right.
Not me personally, but
Right.
everybody else. You need a fiver. I'll send $5.
Yeah.
It's crazy that when did the fires happen? The fires happened towards the beginning
August.
of August, right? So we're going on 3+ weeks now. I'm not saying the problem should be solved, but there should be so many assets down
Yeah.
there that people should be taken care of.
Right. No, for
That's
sure. I mean,
that's how fast they respond. I mean, we send over $150 billion to fight in a war that's none of our business, but it looks like we're lagging on helping out our own people.
right.
So that's pretty ridiculous in my book.
I agree, and I think that's been one of the complaints. I mean, you think about it. That's been one of the complaints for a long time. Is like we're out here being the world police, and we out here trying to, manage everybody else's issues in the whole world, but then our country's falling apart. You know what I mean? And the reality is, it's not even just that we're falling apart anymore. Now it's one of them things where we're beating on our own country. You see what I'm saying? And then we're turning around and giving everybody else hugs. You know what I'm saying? It's like wait a
Well,
minute.
the
Yeah.
corruption is so real, and like they're not even hiding it anymore. They're doing
Right.
it right in
Right.
plain view,
Right.
and people just don't want to see it.
Right.
They don't want to talk. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like I'm not. Like they're doing it on the news
Yeah.
live right
Right.
now.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm trying to take more interest in is I'm trying to watch some of these C-SPAN where they're doing, they're voting on these bills and stuff. Like it's hard to it's dry, and the way they run.
Right.
You
Yeah.
watch the way our government gets run, you're like, Jesus Christ,
Right.
like this.
Dang.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like first of all, why are all these elderly people even allowed to go to work? To begin with, that's something we'll talk about later. But just trying to watch it, and that trickles down because they're so quick to pass bills that'll send money overseas or put money in their pockets, but to help out the people that are going through disasters, help out people in general. The wheels of the government turn real slow, especially when they only work 150 days out of the
Right.
year or something like that. It's
But
ridiculous. Absolutely
you gotta think.
ridiculous.
But you gotta remember, efficiency like that. Here's the thing: if they all worked efficiently the way they're supposed to work, then they wouldn't have much to do anymore.
Mhm.
Like things would they think about it. I was watching C-SPAN once, and I was sitting there watching. I don't even know what they were voting on, but they were sitting there, and I watched them for like 45 minutes, almost an hour. And they spent like an hour talking about renaming a post office in like Hoboken, North Dakota or something like that. And I'm like, this is what tax dollars are going towards. It's like, we're going to change this post office name from, Pumpernickel Post Office to St. McClair's Post Office out in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. And you got, with the world on fire. Like it blew my mind. And then they were talking about like a barbecue or something. And like this is what I'm talking about. I say the reality is that we as the people need to really step up and start holding our government accountable. And I don't mean just like, oh, we got a podcast, and I mean like the reality is that we are getting, like I saw a post a while back, it's starting to feel real 1775-ish. And it's like, I mean, and I'm not saying we are at that point to that level, but I'm just saying like we as the people need to start really considering the fact that you might actually be under a government that is not have your best interest in mind. You know what I'm saying? Like let's be real about it. And we have to start really considering, okay, if this is the case, if this is not just a bunch of conjecture, this is not just a bunch of speculation, this is not just a bunch of conspiracy, if we see the facts right in front of us, if you see it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, acts like a duck, then guess what? We might be getting to a place where we need to start going to load the shotgun. You know what I'm saying? Like go get the hound. Because if we don't wake up and see that, like you said, they don't even need to hide the corruption anymore. Like they don't even need to hide. Like I mean, we as a society, like I wrote this the other day, is like we are a society that is more willing to be deceived than offended. Like we're willing to we like Patrick Henry said it in the "Give Me Liberty, Give Me Death" speech a long time ago. He said we are apt to shut our eyes to a painful truth, and the reality is that we can't do that. A world without truth is a world that does not exist. You see what I'm saying? Our world will crumble and fall. You know,
Yeah.
and it frustrates me because I see we always talk about what kind of world are we going to leave our children. Well, the reality is that you're looking at it from a social and cultural perspective. I'm looking at it from a truth perspective. Like it doesn't matter what social causes or cultural causes or what party you stand with or whatever the case is. If you try to build a society on something other than truth, then it's going to fail, and
We
there
got
will be no world to leave our country, leave our children.
well. There's been. I mean, you got to think about the social warfare that they've been waging on us for years now. You know, and if you really sit back and you look at the major issues, you can see the hand of the government in everything, right?
Right,
So let's take one of the let's just take one of the major ones that people talk about all the time, abortion, right? So abortion is a huge topic, right? But let's say every state had decent abortion laws. Let's say, you know, the machine is running smoothly. People aren't abusing it. It's being used for what it's supposed to, blah, blah, blah. That wouldn't do them any good because now that it's no longer an issue, it's just something we live with. We don't want to talk about it. So now you have to have half the states go one way, half the states go the other way, right? When it comes to any issue like that. But then on top of the mix, think about it like this. What's one thing that's been in the news more than anything else in the last 10 years? Sex. Sex,
sex, yeah.
LGBTQ, and now they're going after kids because what happens if you hypersexualize young adults? They're going to have sex, and what are they going to do? They're going to have babies, and what are they going to want? They're going to want government assistance. They're going to want abortions. They're going. And I'm not saying everybody who has kids and everybody. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if you take an entire population and you hypersexualize it like that.
whether you agree or disagree with what they were protesting about or organizations and all that. We've talked a little bit about that, but I'm just saying there were people out there that were peacefully protesting, and then all of a sudden you had these groups, and people have said there were people that we did not recognize that were from not around here, were not part of our group, that showed up out of nowhere and started causing chaos. You know what I'm saying? When you go and look at it, you look at how they had the bricks, the pallets of bricks that were randomly placed in the cities before the protest, right before riots broke out. When you had vans of weaponry and bats and all kinds of stuff. When you had, secret compartments in the side of alleyways and buildings that already had glass bottles and Molotov cocktails, ingredients and stuff already set to the side. You look at that and you're like, man, that's really questionable. That makes me raise an eyebrow. And so it's the same concept where you have, yes, are there naturally occurring fires? Absolutely. But when you look at the overarching picture, these natural occurring fires that are naturally occurring back to back to back to back in all different climates, all at the same time, all conveniently not being reported on, all having security that's keeping people from going in there. You saw in, I think it was Canada, they're used to fires and they go in there and they put them out themselves. And now all of a sudden
They're not letting them.
the government is saying, no, you can't put the fire out. They're cutting off the water in Canada. See, nobody's talking about that part. See, we're so focused on Maui, nobody's talking about the fires in Canada, the fire in Washington State, the fire in all these different places where the people are saying, we can go put this out. We can fix it. We don't even need your resources. You're telling us, no, you can't. And I think the Canada one really trips me out because these people have been fighting the fires for years on their own and keeping them at bay. Now these fires break out, and not only are they being stopped and told that you'll be arrested if you go fight the fire, you'll also not only be arrested, okay, say you do get through the barricade, they cut the water off. See, so Maui's not the only place where the water's been cut off, but the electricity's not. And when I saw the Biden administration recently, the assistance that they gave the Maui people, you saw that, right? They gave $700 a person.
So what I understand from that is they gave $700 per person was the initial, because apparently they can only get so much money through Congress. So someone, I saw people arguing about it on the internet, and they're like, no, that's not true. They're actually signing this bill, and they're like, no, what's in this bill is like, they're like, hey, we'll send this many billions to Maui, but you also have to approve this many billions for Ukraine. So they were writing in money for Ukraine along with Maui instead of just streamlining a business. It should be a one-day vote. Be like, hey, we're going to send $5 billion to Maui immediately. Nothing else on the docket, nothing else on the bill. That's another thing we talked about before is like, these bills are full of little other
Right.
expenses that they want to spend money on, so on top of them sending the money to Ukraine, it's just absolutely ridiculous, and I've heard the crazy conspiracies. I hate to say crazy conspiracies, you had aliens down in Maui, you had the United States using, or some government agency using, direct energy weapons, which do exist, by the way, 100%.
Right.
That's not science
It's
fiction
not like a
anymore.
fake thing, right?
It's science fact. Now, did they use them? I don't know. Do I think that this is more likely some sort of arson or, fires started because of the high winds? Because they never got hit by the hurricane. I know that they had like up to 80-mile-an-hour winds. Could a few fires have started and they've been like, okay, we're capitalizing on this, and people, and they had people go out there and continue to, let's shut off the water, let's keep the electricity going, and all these other things. Yeah, I don't think it's a direct energy weapon. That's not my go-to right now for this, but I think it's more along the lines of extreme negligence and the government playing along with probably corporations in order to get all that land cleared. Because, another thing, it's like all the expensive neighborhoods were spared somehow. All the celebrities and the rich people's houses and everything.
That was my thing was, if it was, my thing is this, okay, if this is a raging wildfire, now mind you, I came up in Detroit, we ain't got a bunch of wildfires out there, you know what I'm saying? But, so I'm no wildfire expert, but from my limited understanding of wildfires, I just have a hard time believing that this wildfire, arguably one of the worst wildfires we've ever seen, in wildfire history, hits this island and it just happened to know to stop right at the road where the expensive properties began. Like that part. And mind you, if somebody's a firefighter and they know more about this, then cool, please chime in. But I have a hard time when I look at when you see the videos and you see the images, and it's like a clean cut, like it's a clean line where it's like the nice multi-million-dollar properties and all that kind of stuff. Like their grass don't even have no smoke on it. You know what I'm saying? And then you cross the street and it's just devastation. Like it's complete incineration. And that's where I look at that and it just makes me I just have questions, and maybe somebody who knows more about fire can explain it to me, but I just have a hard time with that. Like when I see this perfect line of expensive property, luxury property, that's not even, like I said, from my understanding, I don't even see any damage. Like the grass ain't even brown. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's right next to the worst wildfire in history. Like that just doesn't really click to me. And mind you, I'm not a nature person. I'm not a fire
Yeah,
person. But
I don't know enough about that. But I mean, I think the worst part of the whole situation is like you have government and local assets that are keeping people out of their town, and that's not just saying in Maui, but you know, we're talking about Canada and everything. That's your local, that's your police and
right,
everything. That means there's other citizens of your nations that are complicit in this.
right,
That they don't. They're not they don't want to ask, they don't want to go against orders. I remember having a conversation the other day because I have a lot of friends that are police officers back home, you know, and this is
right,
my non-police friend asked me, he's like, how do you feel about the police? You know, it's a big topic, you know.
right,
I was like, I got a lot of friends that are police, but I
right,
mean, when they're in the capacity of a policeman, they're not out for me, they're not my friend. So if the exact same, like if I would have flown home during Ida, right, because I was over here when Ida hit a couple of years ago in New Orleans, if I'd have gone home, nobody's stopping me from getting to my home. You don't have a right to stop me from going to my home. Who are you?
right,
You're nobody.
right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's how I feel. You know, you were talking about what can we do? There's enough of us. There's enough people around the world, around the country at the very least, that care. That's what we need to do.
Yeah,
If I was in a better position and not in the Middle East, like maybe we could figure out how to get a boat and get down to Hawaii. I
yeah,
don't even know how far away it is, but I
yeah,
think, you know, we get a big enough boat, we find somebody who knows how to do that type of
right.
shit, we can go. Um,
I'll tell you what's interesting,
I'm all about
right?
it.
You know what
Yeah.
that came up in my mind the other day when I was thinking about this whole situation. I was thinking about where's the National Guard? Because you remember, I think
Um,
I don't know if we were in at that time when the hurricane hit up in New York, and like destroyed the East Coast. What was that? Hurricane like Matthew or something.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't